I want to start today with something which may change your mind about how you think about job interviews. You already know what they're going to ask you. I'm being serious and I'm going to prove it. But first, I'm going to tell you something that I tell every client, and this is really important to remember. The employer invited you to the interview. Of all the people that applied, you have been invited for an interview. And that's really important to remember. That really boosts your confidence. They asked to speak to you. You are important. They've read your CV, they've possibly looked at your LinkedIn profile, and compared to all the other people, you have been one that's been chosen for an interview. They've compared you against every other person and they picked you to interview. They want to speak to you. Remember that. They want to speak to you. That decision, before a word has been spoken, already tells you something. The employer already believes that you're capable of doing this job. You're not walking into interrogation. They've already decided that you can do the job. They just want to make sure that you're the right person to do the job. You're walking into a conversation with two people trying to work out if they can work together to do the job. That's a very different frame, and everything about today's video builds on that. If this is your first time here, I'm Mike Fox, a professional English coach and a qualified careers counsellor. I am a psychology graduate. Today, I'm drawing on my careers coaching background, because that's one of the most common things I work with when I'm working with my clients. One of the things with the highest stakes, job interviews. So without further ado, section 1, the 3 questions. Underneath every interview question, no matter how it's phrased, no matter how unexpected it seems, the interviewer is really trying to answer 3 things. Question 1, can this person do the job? This is a competence question. Do you have the skills, the experience, the knowledge to be able to do this job? Can they rely on you to perform? And in all honesty, they've already answered this question. They've invited you for an interview. This should be the easiest question to answer. Question 2, does this person really want this job? This is a motivation question. Are you genuinely interested in this work, in this company, in this field? Or are you here because you need a job and this happened to come up? Interviewers care about this deeply, and this is a harder question to answer. Someone who really doesn't want the job isn't going to stay, they won't thrive, and they won't bring their best. Most employers have been burned before with people who say they can do the job. Just give me a chance. And because it's not their passion, because it's not what they want to do, when the right opportunity comes up, that person's out the door. So it's really important to let the employer know that you really want this job, that you love this type of work, you have a passion to be working in this area. Question 3, will this person fit in with us? This is a culture question. Can they see you working alongside their current team? Do you seem like someone that they would enjoy having around? Now, here's why this matters to your preparation. Every question they ask you is trying to gather evidence for one of those 3 questions. Once you know that, preparing becomes much simpler, because instead of worrying what they might ask, you focus on being able to demonstrate across all 3 questions that the answer is yes, you're the right person for the job. Section 2, you already know the questions. Now, back to my opening claim. You already know the questions. You already know what they're going to ask. Here's the proof. The employer wrote a job advertisement. In that advertisement, they told you exactly what they want, sometimes in explicit detail. Every skill they need, every quality they value, every type of experience that they want. If the job description says strong communication skills are required, you're going to be asked about strong communication skills. You can be sure of that. If it says experience of managing teams, surprise, they're going to ask you about your experience of managing teams. And if it says ability to work under pressure, you need to let them know that you have that ability. You have worked under pressure before. The job description is really preparation for the interview questions. They've already told you what they're going to ask about, what they want to talk about, what they need to know. This means that preparation is not just possible, it's completely achievable. For every requirement listed in that job advertisement, you need to provide a concrete example of how and when you have evidenced that particular skill. Not just a general statement about how good you are, a real story with real details that demonstrates your real ability, your real experience, your real knowledge. The genuineness of your story is what really counts. To help with that, I suggest to my clients that they use the STAR framework. STAR. You may have heard of this before. It's very common and very popular. I want to explain why it matters, particularly to non-native English speakers. And this may be really important to you, so please listen. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. Situation, set the scene, give context briefly. Where were you working? What was the background? This could be just one sentence. Task, what was your specific role or responsibility in this situation? What were you personally required to do? Action, what did you do? Not the team, not your manager, you specifically. What decisions did you make? What steps did you take? Results. And for me, results is the most important part, and the part of the question that sometimes gets missed. What happened because of your actions? And where possible, quantify it. Numbers can really be important here. Percentages, time frames, they all make the example more concrete, more believable. The project was completed on time. That's okay for an answer. The project was completed to deadline and saved £15,000. Now that is a powerful answer. It's far more compelling, far more believable, and lets the interviewer know exactly what you bring to them, what you have to offer, how you add to their company. Now here's why STAR is particularly valuable to non-native English speakers. When you're anxious in an interview, your cognitive load is high. You're monitoring your English, managing your nerves, tracking the interviewer's reactions, formulating your answers, and all of this is going on simultaneously and unconsciously. STAR gives you a mental map, a sequence to move through logically. Instead of trying to improvise everything at once, you know exactly where you're going. Situation, task, action, result, in that order every time. Prepare 5 or 6 STAR stories from your professional experience ready for any interview at any time. Each story should be adaptable, able to answer different questions depending on which element you want to emphasize. One story about managing a difficult deadline might also answer a question about working under pressure, about problem solving, about communication, or about teamwork, depending on how you frame it. It's a given, the more you practice, the better you get. Practice makes permanent. Section 4, knowing your CV. 2 things that are obvious and often overlooked because they are so obvious. First, you should know your CV as well as your name. I know there is a tendency to write your CV, proofread it, and then forget about it. It's worth remembering. That's what the employer knows about you. And every claim you make on that CV is fair game. You could be asked a question about anything in your CV. If an interviewer asks you a question about something you wrote on your CV 2 years ago and you can't remember it, it raises questions that you don't want raised. Before any interview, I would read your CV from top to bottom. For every claim that you make in that CV, make sure you can give the evidence to back that claim. Have a specific example ready. This should be easy. It is your history. It is in your memory bank already. You just need to remind yourself now and not at that moment of pressure in the interview when, as I've already mentioned, the cognitive load is high. The chances of forgetting are higher in that moment. So do the preparation now. Research the company and if possible, go deeper than their homepage. It will pay dividends. The difference between a candidate who says, I'm really interested in your company, and one who says, I noticed from your website that you recently expanded into Germany. I would love to understand how that's going to be significant for the future. One is a statement, the other is evidence. Evidence that you really pay attention to what's happening before any interview. Read the website properly, especially the About section and any recent news. Check their LinkedIn page for any recent activity. Do a quick search under the company name and understand the broader market if you can. This research does 2 things. It gives you material to naturally weave into your answers, and it gives you genuinely interesting questions to ask them, which brings me to the thing that most candidates waste, and that's section 5, the questions you ask them. Section 5, the questions you ask them. Now, in the past, I have been guilty of this. Like most people, I treat "do you have any questions" as a moment of formality. I've even been guilty of saying, "no, you've answered everything," which is a terrible thing to say and shows a lack of preparation. This is a significant missed opportunity. The questions you ask in the interview signify three things: your genuine interest in the role, your level of preparation, and your intelligence. A candidate who asks really good, intelligent questions stays in the interviewer's mind longer. Prepare at least 4 questions. Here are 4 examples that may help you think about what you could ask. Questions that show you've done your research. I saw on your website that you'd recently launched into a German market. What's been the biggest challenge with the expansion? Questions about success in the role. What would success look like in this position in 6 months' time? Questions about the team. Could you tell me a bit about the people that I might be working with? Questions about challenges. What are the biggest challenges that we are facing right now? Questions about the company's future. Where do you see the company in 5 years' time? And don't be afraid to ask questions that you might think are difficult. I remember being in an interview and I'd seen in the news that recently a big competitor had just opened a new superstore in the region. So I asked the question, how has the opening of your competitor's store affected your business? I was surprised to hear that it had a positive impact on footfall, on the number of customers deciding to visit the store I'd applied for. It was a great question to ask though. It showed that I was paying attention to what was happening in the market. I was interested in this role. I was interested in working for this company. These questions do something else. They remind you and the interviewer that this is a two-way conversation. You are not simply hoping to be chosen. You are also deciding whether this is the right place for you to work. That posture, that mutual evaluation is genuinely powerful and will genuinely give you confidence before you go into the meeting. Section 6. First impressions. I want to share some research that every candidate needs to know. Psychologists Nally Ambe and Robert Rosenthal conducted a landmark study on what they call thin slicing, the brain's ability to form lasting impressions based on extremely brief observations of behaviour. Their findings were remarkable. Research following on from their work found that interviewers form their initial impression of the candidate within the first 7 seconds of meeting, and more striking still, that the rest of the interview is often spent looking for evidence to confirm that initial first impression. Now, this is not a reason to despair because we know this information. We know what's happening. It's a reason to invest in those first impressions. They are important. Walk in, standing tall, smile, make eye contact. All of this should be genuine. Greet the interviewer warmly. Sit when you're invited to sit. These things take no language ability whatsoever, and they set the tone for what is to happen next. The smile is worth paying particular attention to. Research on authentic smiling versus performed smiles shows that interviewers can detect the difference. Not consciously, but intuitively. You cannot fake warmth effectively, but you can create the conditions for genuine warmth. Before you walk into the interview, remind yourself of this. I have been invited here today because they already think that I could be the right person for this job. They want to talk to me. They've asked me to come here. This is a conversation, not an interrogation. I am here to find out if this works for both of us. I am here because they want to speak to me. That reframe tends to produce genuine calmness and warmth, and it's exactly what the first impression requires. Section 7, common questions to prepare for. Let's talk about a few common questions that will come up and how to prepare for them. Tell me about yourself. This is almost always the opening question. It's so easy to ask. Prepare a brief summary: who you are, what you've done, what you're looking for, and why you're here today. Practice it until it flows naturally, not scripted, natural. My advice is always to start from here and now. That's the part of you that they're really interested in, and work backwards. Not start at the beginning talking about where you went to school, what you did at university. That may not be particularly relevant to the role that you're going for now. What are your weaknesses? Choose a genuine weakness that isn't critical to the role. And always, and I cannot stress this enough, always frame it with how you're addressing that weakness, how you're actively working to improve. Never say you have no weaknesses. That in itself is a huge weakness for any employer. We're human. We know that people have flaws, and what we're looking for is people to be self-reflective enough to recognize their own flaws and to be looking to improve them. Why do you want this job? You should be able to answer this question. Reference the company's specific work, the specific roles and responsibilities, their reputation within the market. Don't give just a generic response about wanting to grow. Be specific, because they can tell the difference. I want to close with something that I said right near the beginning of the interview. And it's important to remember for any interview that you have, they invited you. They want to talk to you. It's important to remember that, to give yourself confidence. If you've prepared yourself well, you've got your star stories, you've researched the company, you have questions ready to ask them. You understand the 3 things that they need to see. When you walk into that room, you're not hoping to be good enough. You're demonstrating that you are good enough. And here's a point that I always make to my non-native English-speaking clients. If you have prepared thoroughly, the English will take care of itself. The more automatic your star stories become through practice, the fewer cognitive resources you need to produce them, which means more is available for what actually makes the difference. Listening well, connecting genuinely, and being present. That is not an English challenge. It's a practical challenge. And practice is something you can control. In my next video, I'm going to be looking at one of the highest stakes situations in professional English, given a presentation. How to prepare, how to manage the nerves, and how to speak with authority even when you don't feel it. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. If you're preparing for an interview right now and would like specific one-to-one support, I offer both a free discovery call and a dedicated interview preparation session. The link is in the description below. I'm Mike Fox. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.